6:30, go ahead and call the meeting to order. The November 18th, 2021, Town of Atoka Planning meeting. I call the meeting to order. Miss Amanda, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Berry?
Present.
Commissioner Hart?
Here.
Commissioner Wellmeyer?
Here.
Commissioner Shelford?
Here.
Commissioner Shipley? Here. Commissioner Moore?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
All members are present. I determine we have a quorum. Next up on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the regular commission meeting from October 21st of 2021.
Motion approved.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Feldmeyer.
Second.
We have a second made by Commissioner Harbor. Is there any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, all those in favor say yea.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is the reports. Director Wallace, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. Total permits for the month of October was 13. Total occupancies was 18. Total building inspections was 65. Property maintenance complaints closed was 60. Property maintenance received was 60. 123 altogether. $373,743 in permit fees.
Is there any questions for Director Wallace?
I have one that's not related to that, but I wanted to see if I noticed that the fence is still not up around Airsar and that railroad car is still back there.
Yes, ma'am. I sent him a certified letter to be here tonight. As we see, he's not here. So, on y'all's behalf,
What
next step.
do we do next?
Well, did we confirm that the certified letter
Yes.
was delivered?
Yes,
And
I
you
have the
requested
card
his-
back.
It requested his presence
Yes.
tonight, I guess. Did,
We'll bring that up whenever it comes to the miscellaneous items of the
Okay.
planning commission. I'll make a note. Any other questions for Director Wallace?
Yeah, what's the note at the bottom about the letters, the 15 letters to builders?
That was the letters that was sent out to clean up properties, garbage, debris, wood, empty dumpsters, silk fence, construction entrances, porta johns, mud in the street. Just letting you know that,
just keeping it good and tight. Is that going pretty good?
yes, sir.
Any other questions for Director Wallace? Seeing none, we'll move on to the matter of old business, which is Oak Creek 2 acceptance discussion. I believe, Mr. Ben, is that you discussing on this one, or Mr. Mark?
Mr. Mark, I believe, is going to begin it.
All right, Mr. Mark?
What
I'm sorry.
are we talking about?
Oak Creek 2 acceptance discussion.
Yeah, so, let me, I don't know, do you have that, we can put up here? The
I don't have the packet.
I think she sent it to you here.
Yeah, I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay.
There it goes.
You got it?
I'll get that going here in a second, so I won't worry about that for now. Okay. So Oak Creek 2, the developer reached out earlier in the year to find out, how they could get the subdivision accepted by the town and how that process worked. Communicated with the developer and laid out what the process looked like. And so the developer, as you have in your packet, I think you have a July 2021 request from the developer for the town to accept Oak Creek 2. And at that point in time, we started working as a town through the process of the subdivision acceptance. And what that looks like and what we've done with other developers recently is that we would review after we received a written letter from the developer for the request, and we would work through our town documents, double check the punch list, and basically make sure that everything was taken care of, or if there were other deficiencies, that we would communicate that to the developer. So after the July 1 letter, we scheduled a walkthrough. I believe at the time I talked with the developer what the process was, and that we would be doing a walkthrough as staff. We did the walkthrough as staff. We had a punch list from, which I think you have in your packet, from June 2020. The inspection date on that initially was May 29th, 2020. So staff did a walkthrough with the old punch list from 2020, to confirm whether the repairs were completed and see if there were any deficiencies. We did identify a couple of things we feel relatively minor that either were taken care of or needed a little further attention. And then we scheduled another follow-up walkthrough and invited the developer to participate in that. They did not. So what you have in your packet is, you have color prints?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're looking at that punch out list, what you have there is from an inspection date of October the 6th, and the text that you have in red are following up on the punch list from May the 29th of 2020. So as you can see, some things have been repaired, but there's still a couple of things that are outstanding. The largest issue seems to be the cul-de-sac at the end of East Cherry Bar in front of lots 86 and 87. So you have also the letter from the town and the response that, what we needed to try to get addressed, and that this item would be on the agenda for tonight's meeting. The town is willing to accept the subdivision and work towards that end, but we've got some outstanding issues that need to be addressed. They're on the punch list in red, and the issue in front of lot 87 with the road situation needs to be resolved.
So why don't we, since the punch list is on there, why don't we look at taking each item up on the punch list in order, and you can just kind of verify, has that been fixed, has it not been fixed?
Sure.
I know one of the questions I'm gonna have is, the photographs that we have here are colored, but were those photographs taken in 2020 or were those taken in 21?
I think those were the original photographs. There is one,
It's all great there now. Swell.
Okay. So if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and take the, I think each matter kind of one at a time, just for clarity, so. I
and
think
on the final staff walkthrough, this would have been the one done on October the 6th, so, yeah, it was myself, I believe, Director Wallace, Director Patrick, Amanda, and I believe you were there for that, weren't you? Yes, and consulting engineer.
Hey, Steve, if you don't mind, before we get into that, I noticed something on the letter from Apex from July this year. They had referenced that, back in May, May of 2020, the original inspection was done. And then there's a note that says that, that they felt the town accepted the repairs done at that point, even though it referenced a town accepting it. Please find attached copy of the SSR accepted punch list. So I don't see that in this. So was that accepted back in 2020, the repairs they made?
But the town does not have any documents to that effect, and also if you look at the same Apex letter, it says Apex was told. I don't know, we don't have, the town doesn't have any.
I guess it references an attached letter to this letter that was received from Apex. Was there not an attachment to it? Am I reading that wrong? To me, that sounds like they're like,
It says
SSR
please find-
accepted.
Yeah,
It's
would you read?
acceptance, so if it's acceptance, then it would be a list of terms not accepted.
It just says, please find attached copy.
Yeah, would you read to me what you're talking about?
Yes.
Is this what we're talking about, right?
Yes, there it is, I guess,
The next to the
second
last
last paragraph
sentence.
or sentence, yes. Please find attached a copy of the Smith-Seckman Reed Inc. acceptance punch list.
Okay, so that is what you have in your packet that has the red text on it.
Okay, so I was reading that to say that was like them accepting the completed punch list item, that's not.
Yeah, so this punch list is what we had in our records, with the exception of the October 2021 comments in that are in red.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
it was one and the same. We had that same document that the builder had sent to us.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So let's just kind of go through, I think, one item at a time. So first up, I see we have a missing 3-inch. It says valve lid. Is that, from the notes on it, still missing and concrete worsen?
Correct.
Any other update from the walkthrough, the reinspection date to today? It's still in the same condition?
No, we have not, outside of the letter that the town had sent on November the 5th with the punch list that was commented on in red, has been any other correspondence from the developer.
Okay. Moving on to the next one, broken gutter.
It's closed, right?
Yep, this area's been repaired, comments closed.
Next up is the erosion control measures that need to be placed.
Yeah, so, as you can see, the comments in red, this area's been stabilized. The comment is regarding the erosion control and stabilization's closed. Of course, this is the larger issue of all of it is the constructed infrastructure at this location, and what you have a picture thereof is what's in front of lot 87. Doesn't match the, you can see the comments, doesn't match the approved construction plans of the final plat. Needs to be resolved before final acceptance.
Were these pictures taken recently, or were they back in 2020 of this area?
These photos are from the original 2020.
Okay. So the original comment didn't make any mention of the infrastructure not matching, is it more erosion control?
Yeah, I believe there's supposed to be a vegetated swell along the, let's see, on the, is that gonna be on the west side of the driveway, between the driveway at lot 87 and the ravine or the creek? There's supposed to be a vegetated swell, and if you take note on, you should have a copy of the subdivision plat. If you look at 87, do you have that, the subdivision plat
Yes.
available for up there quick, Kurt? Now, while Kurt's getting that up, what you'll see in front of lot 87, to the right on the map, it says there's a 60-foot buffer and drainage easement. That does not appear to be there. I do have photos that were taken, not of the walkthrough in October, but photos that were taken back in summer.
There's 87 mark. Far right.
Yeah, so you can see right here that to the 60-foot minimum buffer area and drainage easement.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
So we do show that it was there in 2017. We do have some photos of that, but currently, it does not seem to be the same as it was in 2017. If you bear with me a second, I'll get those photos for you. And of course, I'll even show those.
Wasn't there at one point at the end, a big pile of dirt right there?
There was.
And now it looks like it's been leveled and spread
It does.
towards that swell, or where the drainage easement should be.
So this is June 2017.
Yeah, because
So
there's
that's
a deal from that deal.
the drainage easement. There's other photos and pass those down if need be.
And this is the driveway being set on.
Correct. And then, these have dates on them, and then you can see the, if you want to use it as a reference point, the tree that's in the 17 picture, and
Recently built the house.
so you can see what it looks like currently.
Yeah, like that whole, well, on that other picture,
There's some photos on the back there. I think that'll give you the gist of it.
that's what it's, that big dirt field here, you know. Now, no, there's no drain.
That's the same thing.
Ditches. That drainage area on that first one is missing. Do we know who went in and did that?
I do not know.
We don't know if that was actually done or if it was man.
I don't know. I think the property owner for lot 87 is here. Maybe they could shed some light, but the only thing I can tell you is what's there now, what was there. in 2017 and what's there now. If you want, it might be to keep going through the punch list, because this is probably gonna be a topic that'll continue for some additional discussion. We could maybe knock out some smaller questions.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we'll just move on to the next item, we'll come back to that.
So page 3 of 10 there at the top, the inlet grate's been turned around, comments closed. We didn't have any comments on the picture that was below there on page 3. Page 4, that particular section was in phase 1, not phase 2, so comments closed. Page 5 of 10, so there's a erosion there, so as you can see in red, it says this head wall's been converted to a drain manhole, greatly improved, but still has erosion that needs to be addressed. Pictures are below what illustrates what's there. The comment's not yet closed. So I think what we're trying to get to is that particular area may need some further stabilization.
Is this in somebody's backyard?
I believe it is. I believe
I see
that,
on page 8, I see a fence,
Yeah.
Yeah.
several,
Correct.
which it looks like the erosion is away from that manhole cover.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but I think you're on page 7. That is a current picture that we took that day.
Yeah, those are the pictures we took that day, and they're outside that thing.
Yes. 6 was as well? Yes, so page 6, page 7, and page 8 were pictures that we took that day. It looks like page 9 as well, in October 2021. So really just needs a little further stabilization. I don't think it's a huge issue. Do you have any questions on any of that right now, or do you want to move on to the next subject?
Any comments?
So all these, like I said, these are comments that were, or punch list that was provided to Apex back in May of 2020, roundabout. And then, like I said, according to their letter, they addressed those. Do we have a formal request from them for a reinspection? And was a reinspection completed? Do we have anything like that?
No.
Do we know was one completed with them, just, you know,
We don't have any documentation to that
a
effect.
record of a reinspection,
No,
of being requested for a reinspection?
Correct.
I guess, and that's what we usually do, rely on the developer to tell us that they've completed punch lists. Whenever we have a new subdivision like this, it's on them to say, we've addressed the issues, we're ready, and then they call us for reinspection.
There should be some documentation of the fact that whether something's been corrected or is still outstanding, but what you have is what we have as far as documentation.
Any other, further discussion on these matters?
We move to page 10 of 10, if you would like. That particular photo is a photo we took in early October 2021. As you can see, the hole there next to the stormwater grate, that chunk of asphalt was down in the hole. It had fallen down in that hole. So we pulled that chunk out of there to see what the how far that erosion had taken place. So basically you can stick your arm in there. And then the asphalt, of course, is missing there. So as you can see the comments there, this inlet is on the east side of the cove at the east end of the Sweet Gum Lane. The hole in the picture is deep and extends under the curb and asphalt on the side and in front of the inlet. Appears the water's getting into the hole rather than on top of the grate. This hole needed to be filled and the curb and the asphalt repaired. Additional notes, inlets on Rosemark South of Chinkopin still had erosion control bags. So this was not contained in the pictures that were in the in your punch list. Inlets at the Rosemark South of Chinkopin still had the erosion control bags on them. All the inlets should have their sediment and erosion control bags removed at this point. And then we're asking the developer to confirm that there are no other inlet grates with bags on them. And then number 2 was the pond at the north of Cherry Bark area, the cottonwood tree grown from the outlet of the structure. It should be removed completely and the structure repaired as necessary.
Is this the pond on Rosemark?
To the north of Cherry Bark, the pond at the north of Cherry Bark area, I think there's an easement there, and that's gonna be in, let's see where that's at, that's Yeah, so that's gonna be near lot 92, off the Sweet Dump. Is that the one we're talking about, or is the one we're talking about for lot 82, 83, 84?
The pond?
Yeah, that would be
It
this
is
one,
the
right?
other pond, it's not the one that's down, it's the other one, yes.
Yeah, so that would be the pond at lot 82, 83, 84. Yeah, there you go. Kurt has it up.
I think it is the other one. Okay. Thank you.
No, Oak Creek doesn't have an HOA. I think the town's responsible for maintaining the ponds. They service
They own,
it.
the property owners own,
And but the pond is serving the entire subdivision. It's in an easement, a public easement.
but, it's their property, they own the
I understand, but it's in a public drainage easement that allows it to be on their property.
So number 3 notes on the front of on your subdivision sheet, maybe kind of help out a little bit there. So, all stormwater retention areas.
Well, it's just like if I had a fire hydrant out in my front yard, because it has to come out from under the road. If that
But we
fire
don't
hydrant
weed it.
breaks,
But we don't come weed eat it
no, but if the top
it
fall off
breaks,
the
then
fire
it's worse.
hydrant, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there's some issue that prevents that pond from functioning like it's supposed to, I think the town would be responsible for maintaining it.
Well,
I don't know
so,
about that.
Hold on, let's go back to this one.
number 3,
Yeah.
all stormwater retention areas, retention ponds are private and are to be maintained by each individual lot owner. Any alterations to the retention pond should be approved by the town. So that might answer your question. So that's what we got. I think the developers here, they may want to say something or have some comments that may be helpful, I don't know.
Any other questions of town staff? Board like to move forward and ask some questions to the developer? Do that? Okay. Come forward. Mr. Tony, the floor is yours.
As far as the punch list goes that y'all have, I turned it back into the city, and at the time, Public Works Director and the code enforcement officer went and inspected it, told me everything was done to satisfactory, and they'd give it to the engineers. As far as I knew, the subdivision was accepted. Because I did turn everything back in, and Daniel Lovett, who was the previous director, is here to tell y'all he inspected this and everything was done. The missing caps, I'll replace them again, but I've already replaced them 2 or 3 times. Every time somebody turns the valve off, they refuse to put the caps back on. But I mean, they're $30 a piece. I don't mind replacing them to make this happen. As far as the end of this code, I don't own that property. I can't go in there and mess with that man's property. We sodded it and stabilized it, but the area that we own, but I don't know who's gone in there and done anything to it since then. The grade is turning around. But when you get back here, if you look at page 5 of 10, do you see that head wall there?
Yes.
Okay, I put that head wall in when I developed the subdivision. They told me to come in there and fix the erosion, so you see the ditch. If you look at the far end, you see where that ditch is armor plated, or has the riprap in it?
At the end of it,
Yeah, we did that all the way up to that head wall, okay? Well, whoever developed phase 5 went from this picture to the manhole. I don't know who did it. We didn't put that manhole in, that was done in April. Because I went and talked to the homeowner of this manhole, it's in his yard, and he said that he had to go to an attorney's office and sign paperwork for them to come on his property, dig out this head wall that I put in, and replace it with this with this manhole.
So this head wall's not even,
That head wall's no
this
longer
is
there.
basically the same picture, but this isn't here, it's this now.
It's been replaced with this manhole, so all these subsequent pictures revolve around this manhole, not around my head wall. So I don't know who y'all need to talk to about repairing all that. It was whoever did the next phase of that subdivision back there.
Yeah, I guess they,
I guess when they put some underground drain pipe in, it's.
I had no idea what they did. I didn't know anything about this until I talked to the homeowner when he told me, because I was trying to figure out where this manhole came from. And when he told me, no, that head wall's gone now, and you now have he has a manhole now. I don't know why they had to do it. I have no idea. And then this final picture you got of the asphalt, yes, this road is gonna deteriorate and it's gonna continue to fall apart until the final layer of asphalt's put on. That's why we have been trying to get the city to asphalt this road. I don't wanna be responsible for this road down, 5 years from now. I didn't know I was still responsible for it at this point. But this road is gonna continue to fall apart until it's got a final layer of asphalt, because that water cannot get into that grate properly as long as you have 1.5 inches of settlement along the curb. It's gotta go somewhere, so it's gonna run into a crack until it tears the road up. If you look at the previous pages, you can see where these roads gator backed because they hadn't been taken care of. In phase 1 of this picture, right here where the asphalt is all gator backed and they put a picture on it, that's what this whole subdivision is gonna look like. This is gonna be, it's gonna tear the subdivision up if they don't pave it. And I don't know how long they wanna wait to pave it, but if they're not gonna pave it because we're missing some sewer valve caps, I don't understand the philosophy there. They're gonna continue to let this subdivision deteriorate to the point that it's gonna take a tremendous amount of money to repair it. And I've done my due diligence, I've done everything I know to do to get this subdivision ready for them to accept. And when I had the meeting with Atoka, that's how far back this goes. Atoka and Shelley Johnson were here when we had the meeting, and she told me, turn in your punch list. When they inspected it and accepted it, I thought it was done. I didn't know until probably, when did I write you that letter? That's when I found out it hadn't been accepted.
July 1st.
Because I called Alderman Feldmeyer and said, has this subdivision not been accepted? Because Wayne Bowler told me you need to check. I don't think they accepted it.
that's about end of June, I think, when.
Somewhere in there. It was well over a year after we did our punch list. And so I don't know how many more, how many times we moved the goalpost.
Any other questions for the developer at this time?
Well, and then as far as the temporary turnaround at the end of the street that doesn't match the recorded plat, that's the normal way you build a subdivision. If you look at the plans, there was a temporary turnaround in phase 1 I had to tear out when I built phase 2. If you take that temporary turnaround down there out, you then violate fire codes. I'm sure the fire chief can tell you that. You can't back a fire truck up over a certain distance. I don't know what it is. But if you don't have that turnaround, you can't back a fire truck up. I was forced to put that turnaround in. Don't think I wanted to build it. It was very expensive. But I put it in. And so, no, it's not going to match the recorded plat, because the recorded plat is the one that goes with the master plan that at some point after we developed this, they changed the master plan. I don't know how it got changed or why, but it did. And so that temporary turnaround, I guess, is going to have to be made into a permanent turnaround, I guess, because a fire truck requires it. So I don't know, how y'all want to proceed with that.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, Will Patterson representing that, is the drainage or detention pond that's owned by the homeowners, or I don't know if there's an HOA here or not.
No, there's not.
Okay, owned by the specific lots that it covers. Just because there's an easement there doesn't give the town the authority or obligation to go in and correct any future problems there. I mean, quite frankly, you can't spend public dollars on private improvements like that. So I submit that's not an issue related to Mr. Terhune or us. If there's a problem down the road, the property owners that own that are gonna have to address it. There shouldn't be problems, but to the extent there is, that's who's gonna have to fix it. Unless or until the town comes in, takes it, and then accepts the responsibility for it. But knowing the town I represent, there's detention ponds all over the place. Only 2 that we are allowed to touch because they're the only 2 that we own. Different towns do it differently. Bartlett maintains all of them. Most towns don't maintain any of them, but you can't maintain them unless you own them, irrespective of whether there's an easement there or not. But I don't represent the town, so you have to consult your own attorney on that a little bit. That's where I'm coming from.
Have any questions for the developer?
Do we know who put this, is it really, do we know who put this manhole in the?
I do not know.
I think it was part of that, was it phase 5 that's adjacent to this?
Phase 5.
I think it was part of their drainage, but they had to get their flows to work. I remember something about that, they had to do some sort of drainage improvements.
Have we accepted phase 5 yet, do we know?
No.
Oh, no, it's still under construction.
And all this is currently in somebody's private property.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not on the phase 5 property at all. That's the adjacent.
Okay, I might be thinking of a different area.
The homeowner may have had the manhole put in, I don't know, he didn't tell me he did, but, you know, it's not my it's not our property, I can't go in there and mess with his property now.
I suspect that the homeowner probably allowed them to go do it.
I would
And that's why
think.
they go to the attorney's office and sign everything, and probably did at no cost to the homeowner in order to fix the problem. Are there some slight divots in the pictures from last month? Certainly, but it's not related to any drainage issues that existed
That's kind
18
of my
months ago.
assumption as well, that
Yeah.
why he went to sign off on it, so as to get authority.
Yeah, we could talk to him about it, but it's not, I guess, just not secondary to the improvements that were made.
It's
by
Matt
APS.
Taylor, if you wanna know whose house it is. Because I went to him and he's the one that told me that he had to go sign paperwork to have the manhole put in. They took the head wall I put in out back in April.
Just who built phase 5? You remember who built phase 5?
Pro site.
Pro side.
It was a joint venture with Pro Site and Tipton Land Company. Or Munford Land, I don't know which one they
I know who
use.
you know. Yeah, yes, thank you. Any other questions for the developer? What direction would the board like to go for? Would y'all like to talk to the,
I'd like to ask staff what their recommendation is for this, or what they think that needs to be done to proceed.
What about the drain, the ditch there
the cul-de-sac?
at the cul-de-sac that's literally disappeared?
Well, it looked like it disappeared in one picture, but reemerged further into this property,
So,
away from where the.
Rex,
vehicle
is the
was.
ditch still there? I thought it's not. Do we have any
Drain's
insight on
not
what
there.
happened to it?
I took the picture myself in 17. It was there. As of today, it's not.
No, you can tell us it was there at one point, but it's not there anymore, and
No.
no information on why or what happened.
Yeah, doesn't he have an issue?
Yes.
Yeah, but didn't you come about that issue before? Okay. And, okay, that's what I thought. Do you plan to speak tonight?
Do you guys want
This
to,
right here.
so that's my question, do you guys want, is there any other questions that you want to ask the developer in regards to this? Do you want to go to town staff to have them kind of answer, or do you want to talk to the homeowner? What's the board's direction? Where would you all like to go?
I think we kind of need the whole picture
Yeah.
before we're able to.
Yeah.
I'd like to see all sides.
And I'd like to hear the homeowner again, because, you know, I want to hear what he has to say too.
Because my only concern with that is, I don't believe this is a public hearing item, so I don't know as far as that goes, if we're able to do that, open it up just the floor to anybody to speak.
I was gonna say, it's up to the direction of you guys as the board, if y'all are willing.
I mean, if he knows something about the ditch, I mean.
Yeah. that's what I'd like to
Can we specifically request, instead of opening the floor, can we request somebody come up?
Yeah, we can do that.
Can we be specific
Mr.
about?
Tony, no other questions for Mr. Tony?
Not this time, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Daniel, would you like to come up, kind of address?
You may, I don't know if he's seen those pictures or not.
Evening, how are y'all this evening?
Good evening, sir.
Okay,
So can you kind of shed some light on?
We have some.
the drainage ditch.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, the drainage easement, Poplar Grove came in and ran a new gas main from the end of the cove there, underneath the creek and over to the new phase 4, I believe it is. When they did that, they knocked down the wall, moved dirt out of the way, and packed it down, and created a new drainage right at the end of the cove.
So there is a drainage ditch there, it's been relocated, I guess you could say.
They knocked that, there was a large mound or dirt wall there, and they knocked it down and moved it over.
Okay. And I remember back when they were still building houses back there by you, there was quite a bit of erosion, like, and you see in some of these pictures where, you know,
The mud.
muddy water was ponded, is that?
I've got pictures
No,
here.
I remember it being an issue.
I've got pictures of today.
It still is, that was gonna be my question. is-
There's still water sits, mud and water sits at the end of my driveway.
And I think part of that too is there's not that final layer of asphalt on there yet.
Can we
Well,
see
those
that-
pictures?
Yes, ma'am?
That's what this was last time.
He took these 2 days.
I took these today and printed them out today.
Before Poplar Grove came in, did that affect your mud at all?
Once Poplar Grove came in and moved that drainage, it did affect it in a positive way a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't have anywhere near as much as what it used to be. Once all the houses finally finished,
Sure.
the
Mud
mud
down the
stopped,
street, yes.
but water still sits there. It still freezes in the winter. It's still tearing up the end of the road and at the end of the driveway.
So the ditch was right here.
Yeah.
So with that extra inch and a half, however much it is, literally raise it up to wherever, yeah, it would raise it to where the ditch was about right in here.
But I guess if the ditch function sounds like better than what it was beforehand.
Better than it was
and
before.
It's stable, the ground, the dirt is stable,
It's eroding on the
right
backside,
on the backside.
yeah. And it'd be eroding worse if I hadn't put sod there.
So, I guess other than, you know, keep an eye on that erosion issue, make sure it doesn't turn into,
Where's the
I
picture?
don't know. Here's one from 12.
Well, that brings up another issue.
Where it was.
No, that's all right.
You got access to the town notes?
There's some front and back too.
Potentially. Pull up April the 19th of 2018, and put it on Monday. Planning Commission.
You're gonna have light down here, you have water for
It's a 2018, right? April 19th, 2018.
Half of it was, right now, it has to go around up to,
Any other questions for the homeowner? Of lot 87?
Mhm.
you had, Poplar Grove add that dirt over there?
I didn't have them do it, they did it.
I couldn't remember, I thought you'd said at one time that when me and Barry come over, you'd asked them to put all the dirt over there, when they dug it over there.
When they were gonna push it into the creek, and I asked them to just move it off to the side. Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Thanks, Mr. Tanner.
Are we done? Because I've got more to talk about this very subject.
You have any questions, or y'all?
How many, what, on the ditch there you're talking?
Not just a ditch, but turnaround. I mean, this is part of it, right? All right. Can you pull up those notes for me? April the 19th, 2018, Planning Commission. Other business?
What are you looking for?
This right here.
Are these the minutes?
I think that's the minutes.
Minutes are gonna be from the.
Minutes.
All right, hang on.
That's from the packet there.
Yeah.
You need to go to the minutes one. Right there. Okay.
Where are we at?
Other business.
Right there.
Yep. Okay. April the 19th, 2018,
Can you highlight the parties?
Planning Commission. Other business, Oak Creek Phase 4 discussion. All right. Mr. Wallace here presented to the commission, an issue came up with Phase 4. Initially, the preliminary plat indicated that East Cherry Bark Drive would cross the creek. Right? We all agree on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The developer is asking to instead be allowed to create a cul-de-sac at the end of East Cherry Bark Drive. Okay? A private property. There's temporary turnaround there, but he's asking to turn my property into a cul-de-sac, permanent. Plan Commission at the time approved that. Under what authority?
It's not approved, no action.
Right, no final plat has been approved. No final plat has been presented. So it either goes across, or where are we at?
So was this during the construction of Oak Creek, or, this is during? or
This
Oak
was,
Creek?
this was back in 2018. So this is when Mr. Bowler, Mumford Development Company, Tipton County Land Company, whatever you want to call it, came to y'all and asked instead to not go across the creek, not build a bridge, and instead put a cul-de-sac, and make that a permanent cul-de-sac in front of my house. So missing half of my front
This was after
yard.
you already moved into your house?
Oh, yeah. A year and a half later. Okay? So now we're, what, 3 years after that? No final plat's been submitted.
Well, to clarify, Oak Creek 4, which is I think what Mr. Lee's referring to, Oak Creek 4 has, that's under construction, but this was a original preliminary submission for Oak Creek 4, you agree?
I agree.
And this was
I've got it right here.
This is the final, with those lots off.
Right.
I'll show that to the planning commission, because it's been a while, right? It's been a minute. So this was the Oak Creek 4 in the highlighted section, which was submitted way back in 2018. Thankfully, if I remember correctly, in 2018. So as you can see, the data is proposed, no, Mr. Lee's right here. Yeah. You can see that center line, this pole line is the center line of the creek, and then across from Mr. Lee's lot over to the proposed new section.
And then they took all those houses out.
Yeah, so I think what Mr. Lee is referring to is a discussion that took place at the planning commission. And then this is
Well aware
that.
of the discussion. I was
Sorry,
there.
yeah, so that is the relevant section. You can see that those lots were taken off. So originally, East Cherry Bark was supposed to cross the creek and connect to the, I don't know if it's even described on that preliminary plan, but it's supposed to cross the creek.
It would have continued on as East Cherry Bark.
Yeah.
Now it's nothing.
So this is Lee
Yeah,
right
he's
here?
right there, it's 87, that's his lot, yes, sir. So you can see how it was supposed to cross.
So was the plan to put the cul-de-sac on this end of it, is that what?
Based
what that
on
discussion
What they had asked was, to cul-de-sac both sides instead of putting a bridge in.
Correct. So there would be a cul-de-sac here and here.
Is there a cul-de-sac here today now?
There's nothing there.
I think this Atoka, was that?
It just stops right here, so
Yeah,
if it's
it
just
stops
one
right
line,
there.
that's,
Yes,
that's
it's
fine,
just-
okay.
So this, everything in that highlighted section was dropped off, plus
I got you.
everything over here was dropped off of the Oak Creek 4 case.
Okay. So I think, yeah, this discussion is to me, then, based on what I'm seeing there, it sounds like it's just related to the phase 4 piece and not what was already done and built.
Well, no, it's related to what's already built, because he asked to make the cul-de-sac in front of my house, the temporary turnaround, he asked to make that permanent. So it's related to this as well.
Yeah, there's a discussion
But then he
about
changed
the
his,
cul-de-sac on both
then
sides.
he changed the plan, and there's not even
Okay,
a,
but we're still,
anything there.
there's a cul-de-sac in front of my house. Fire code or no fire code, that's my private property. The town does not own the rights to it or anything.
you're correct.
Road cannot be there
I-
unless something happens.
But part of the
Either-
asphalt you own at this.
Correct. I'm well within my rights to go out there with a jackhammer and pull it up.
You're correct.
You were right.
So,
As far as I know, I don't know that'd be an attorney question.
I'm
Maybe
just
an
telling you,
easement.
it's my property, so I'm well within my rights to do it.
Yeah.
Now, we have solutions. There are several solutions. I'd be willing to donate the land to the town, provided gutter gets put in prior to my mailbox, so that nothing else sits in front of my driveway. A final layer of asphalt is gonna go on, right? That's gonna raise the road above my lot. So, we're gonna have to have some backfill to meet the road. or
So the
curb.
road's gonna be an inch and a half.
To meet the curb, okay? Curb has to go in. It's gotta match the rest of the subdivision. There's nothing there now. Okay? We're on the same page here?
Yeah.
All right. So drainage, curb, backfill to match, sod. I want it to look right if we're gonna, go about this. Otherwise, town can buy it from me. And that's where we stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town staff, any question, comments in regards to everything that we've heard today?
I had a conversation with David Brading, because that was one of the things that I had heard, and at this point, it would be hearsay without him here to speak for himself, but he told me that they did not move that dirt at the end of the cul-de-sac. They did not make all of that movement, so it's the only thing I can tell you about that. Whether they did or they didn't, he'd have to come and answer that for himself, but whether that's a relevant issue for the planning commission. I got 3 satellite photos of the lot, and you can see that the driveway was installed with the cul-de-sac in mind. So the ones from, you can see when, the very first picture, and they have dates in the upper left-hand corner.
You're gonna have to get the city attorney to approve
Yeah, so this, you can see right here, there's that swale that was in the photos from 2017. And you can see the driveway is installed to match up to the cul-de-sac, not up to the street.
That's a tricky area. This went straight, somebody was gonna have to go back and move his, lots and
Somebody.
cut and concrete.
So, I thought I might give you a little bit more information.
This was eventually went straight through something and three ways. I guess there's this cul-de-sac issue, but there's also the question of, is Apex responsible for anything? Obviously, I don't know that we can accept the subdivision fully because of the cul-de-sac issue, but can we say that Apex has done everything that they need to do to, now it's between the town, the landowners that own these adjacent lots, and whatever solution we get there? Is that a fair assessment? To kind of look at this,
Well,
break it off in 2 separate pieces?
I think too here, to go back to that, know, Director Wallace is still here with the town, he's still employed with the town. So can you kind of shed some light on the inspection that Mr. Tony's talking about?
Yes, I
The
can.
conversation that was had?
Yes, sir. After they done the completion, which I got one picture that I'm trying to send to Casey now. Chad's trying to find me the rest of them, where they did fix them. I did give them to Athanasia. Did I make a copy? No, but I did turn them in of everything being fixed. The end of the driveway that's poured, I have it on here if you'd like to see the date that they was doing it. It was June of last year, not this year, that this took place.
Which one? The driveway? Oh, driveway says it's good.
I know, but I'm saying I have the picture showing of that it was fixed June of last year
Yeah.
in the process, but I didn't get all the pictures, so they're finding them for me now.
So your recollection is that everything was approved back?
Yes, sir. I'll take it as everything was fixed. Approved, I don't know,
Sure,
but
right.
fixed.
In your eyes, they addressed the concerns that were presented?
That's right. Now, going to the cul-de-sac, everybody can sit here. If you look at the picture of 2017 that I took, it probably don't show it good, but there is a crate drain to the right, to the left of that driveway that is covered up, that has an outlet that goes over the hill. It's no longer there. Yes, he changed the water to make it flow better. Is that right? No. The contractor put in a drain to drain that. It should have been taken care of to drain at that time, not the homeowner making a suggestion to move all the dirt at the end of a cul-de-sac. That is washing now when there was a storm drain inlet put in to catch this water. That's my only thing. Now, the cul-de-sac being there, I don't, that's y'all. But I'm saying, what's that?
Cul-de-sac going in.
The cul-de-sac was in before any lot was sold. Your infrastructure, streets and everything was in before any person walked in to buy a lot.
So when he bought that house, he knew the cul-de-sac was there.
That's correct.
Can I rebut that now? Yes, I knew it was temporary. Okay? I knew it was supposed to be temporary. Tony told me it was temporary, and when the next developer came in, they were going to rip it out and rip half of my driveway out and straighten it completely out. So again, there we stand, temporary. It's on the plat right here, temporary.
So
If they
everything.
come back,
Go ahead.
if they come back on, the part they took out of phase 4, and make us phase, I'm not sure what phase they're even on now, phase 8,
I think
10.
they're starting to find one.
And add that back in over there, you know, that's when they would go across, right?
That's correct.
So it would have to stay temporary until,
Until the proceeding of the lower half of
The other
Oak Creek
part.
4 turns into Oak Creek 5,
Yeah.
or 6.
Or 6.
Yeah.
Is that ever gonna happen?
I have no idea.
I guess that's really the question that I've had is, does the planning commission want that street to go across the creek at some point? If you do, you do. If you don't, then I think it makes the decision a little easier.
I think it definitely improves traffic flow.
The question is, who would pay for the bridge? Yeah, I think it's gonna be developer driven. If it'd be a developer who ever wanted to come in for whatever reason to build more houses back there, I think that'd be a reason why. I don't see the town ever having interest in doing it themselves, would be my assumption. But yeah, I mean, it could happen down the road, I guess. You know, just be.
They're not making any more land here.
They are proposed to, later in time, do the rest of the lots.
But how far could that be?
So,
When are they gonna do that?
need my money.
Barry, did
I
you have a
think-
question earlier?
I did, I'll get it. Barry Aiken, 44 West Cherry Bark, I'm on the other end. Danny and I met with Mr. Lee a year ago plus when we were trying to talk about this. So I asked Director Wallace, if they put the temporary in, whose job is it? So let's say the bridge goes in, it goes across. Whose responsibility is it to put everything back to a road? You want to tell them what you
The
told them?
contractor that is going to be doing the development on the other side of the creek, he has to go back and turn it from cul-de-sac, since it's not, it's a through street. He will have to take care of anything prior and escalating. Have to put in the bridge, fix Mr. Lee's, because it's not a temporary turnaround anymore, it's a through street. So the next person that does the next phase, and you tie it together, who would have to be responsible for Daniel Lee's property.
The drain you're talking about, is it, that what's in blue?
Mm-hmm.
So that drain went from that ditch out to the,
It went straight and it's, if you go, I guess it's south. If you go south, it's rip wrap in the end of the pipe over by those trees. See the row of trees in the creek? The
so
trees,
it goes from here to here,
no,
or here back, just straight back?
it goes straight. Okay. That here was the drain, that's where the water was supposed to go. This here's against water too. It's a pipe, but there's a tree.
Just to help drain.
Okay, now all this is covering it, so that's gone.
So that's
So what gave him the right to offer? Was it put in for the city?
And I guess the only thing I have to add to it is right now, Mr. Lee, and not just Mr. Lee, there's a homeowner on the other side, you know, that area is in a twilight zone. It's either temporary cul-de-sac, which temporary can't be temporary, it has to change one way or the other. So we've either got to get a bridge in there, the previous, you know, the April 18th notes, whether that's ruled that the planning commission didn't have the authority, or it was just never approved, never went to the next phase. But I think what the position that y'all are in is the town has to be very careful about accepting something without a plan. There's no plan right now, it's just limbo. Now, whether it's Apex, whether it's Wayne Bowler, whether it's the town, whether it's a combination of all of the above, we need to either say it's a permanent cul-de-sac. If it's not, let's get a bridge across it. Let's pull up the asphalt, which I guess would be Mr. Bowler. But as a town, I don't think we can accept the subdivision until something concrete, that's a bad choice of words, something official is nailed down as to what to do with this particular end of the street right now. That's all I got to add.
I think I'd agree with that, and my thoughts on it are, I think it was not a comment in the initial punch list for Apex. We have a staff member here that has said that Apex addressed all the punch list items that were given to them back when, you know, in a timely manner. So my thoughts are that Apex has done what they need to do for this subdivision. Now it's really a town matter to figure out how to address this.
I also agree with Alderman Aiken's statement about we shouldn't accept the subdivision until we make a determination on what to do with the cul-de-sac. But at the same time, it's not really fair to Apex to withhold acceptance because it's beyond their control. So we need to figure out now, in terms of next steps of what needs to be done with this cul-de-sac.
And don't we need to go and look at so like Mr. Jerman said that some of these are not related to him anymore, like the manhole? Do we need to, don't we need to check that out too?
I think because, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think from what I understand that I'm comfortable with the original punch list. And
Yeah, I'd hate to hold him responsible for a manhole
Yeah,
cover that I
that's
dug
why,
up, put in it.
that's why
Tore
I
out
asked,
something.
I was asking
Well,
Mark
from
Yeah.
talking on the
that.
plans, that's the homeowner's responsibility to fix, is what I heard.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right, well, and he said he spoke to the person and the person, somebody else had put the manhole in or had that done. So that wouldn't be his now, but can't we go through here and look at these and see what we are still responsible for with him?
Well, you mean with Apex?
Yeah.
We offered for them to come on the.
Can
private
y'all do
walkthrough.
that with them and go through this list?
To me, I think already did, 2
Okay.
years ago.
To address your question about the manhole, I don't believe that the manhole was on Oak Creek 5 property.
Okay.
That manhole is on the Oak Creek 2
Okay.
properties.
So are you're in agreement that they've already addressed every one of these?
I would agree that the comments in red are the comments in red. I would ask the planning commission, as you can see what's included in the subdivision plat, that's also on the screen, who's responsible to extend East Cherry Bark Drive to the extent of the end of lot 87?
I think any future developer of that adjacent lot, if they bring in plans for it, it'd have to, that 17.98 acre lot right there. I mean, yeah, it'd be difficult to develop it, that doesn't mean it can't be developed. So if ever wanted to extend, like I said, Cherry Bark or that Catalapa Cove.
Atoka.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If one of those, if they ever wanted to, build back in there, that would have to be part of it. It'd be that future development then, would have to tie in.
So that developer would do the work on the Oak Creek side of the creek in front of lot 87? If it's connected ever.
Yeah.
So we're back to the cul-de-sac.
So I guess my question would kind of be is if the cul-de-sac was put in and then say 5 years from now someone developed this, we can go back to the 2018 and so now you gotta go tear this cul-de-sac and connect it.
This is a dilemma we're faced with.
Yeah, so the question is, do we accept the subdivision and pave East Cherry Bark Drive as is with no additional improvements?
Well, I'm gonna be honest, as far as where my standpoint on it is, I tend to do agree with Mr. Lee. I mean, if we're gonna do it, we better do it right. We better put the drainage in there. I don't want things freezing up and busting the road up, because at the end of the day, the town's gonna pay to come out there and pave it, fix it, patch it. So I mean, I do want it done right if we do it that way.
If the town paved it right now, we could only pave it straight, we couldn't
That's what
pave
I'm
the
saying.
entire.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't know if it's something that, of course, whatever direction the board wants to go, but if it's an issue that maybe we could potentially table and let staff and town attorney and Mr. Lee and them kind of talk and see what they can come up till next month of January, when we meet again. Or, I don't see how one more month is gonna, unless we have another earthquake.
Well, how much more damage will be done to the asphalt in a month or 2 months?
We're talking about the whole subdivision now,
I think it's asphalt plants are getting ready to shut down anyway, so it's not gonna get paid.
So it wouldn't get paid anyway.
Probably not.
So, I mean, that's just my thought process, just to allow.
I mean, with it being a temporary, whoever develops that 18 acres would be responsible.
Yeah, because
And like I said, that's just my thinking, to allow town staff and the attorney to.
It's gotta stay temporary until someone develops it.
And maybe they can work out.
J.E. Blades is temporary for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But that's town staff, Ms. Culver, you want?
So, and we've had conversations with Mr. Lee, I think you agree with that. If the town decides to make this, the way that the final plat is, if the town accepts the subdivision and does the final layer, they can only do the final layer as a stub out. If we put a final layer as a cul-de-sac, we are then paving on top of these people's land. And we cannot do that without some sort of temporary construction easement that would be given by the two property owners. And so I think where the board needs to make a decision, because this is something that has been talked about. And I'm happy to go back to the table if that's what the board directs. But I think the board is going to need to make a decision. Are we going to change the plat so that we can add a cul-de-sac and curb and gutter? Or is it going to be a temporary cul-de-sac continuing on with the assumption that when that land is developed, it will eventually connect? So I think really the board just needs to give some direction, because the town is not going to be able to do a final layer of asphalt on a temporary cul-de-sac we can do the stub out, and then you've got the base
So
layer.
we don't know when the 17 acres, it could go on for years.
It could go on for years,
It could
and
go-
that's why,
Right,
and
yeah.
that's why temporary cul-de-sacs are temporary in nature, because you don't know when, we can't make a
See,
developer develop anything. But in order to put a final layer over that cul-de-sac, the plat is going to need to be changed. We're going to have to be in conference with the landowners about that piece of, those pieces of land becoming the town's. Because currently they are the property of two landowners. And
So, but that would just leave them hanging in limbo forever without it being fixed.
if it is a temporary if it stays like it is, where it's a temporary cul-de-sac, then Mr. Lee and the property owner who lives across the, I'm sorry, Mr. Hadir, can grant a temporary easement in order for us to pave it as if it is a cul-de-sac, so that it looks like a cul-de-sac, but it still leaves us with the ability to later connect it. And that may be the solution here. Now, I believe, and Ben can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an engineer. I believe that, I'm not sure that that would allow us to do curb and gutter, because the intention is for it to eventually go away. And so yes, but
And whoever developed it would come in, tear the cul-de-sac out, and then do the curb and gutter.
that's what they have to do, yes,
Right.
absolutely, yes. But if we are looking at changing a plat, then we are, I think this board, and again, that's the direction that we need, is if you guys want to make this a permanent cul-de-sac, we need to know, because we have to figure out with the landowners, we have to do curb and gutter, and we have to revise a plat. If this board would prefer it to be a temporary cul-de-sac until the land is eventually developed, like the plan currently is, then we would enter into negotiations with these landowners about doing a temporary construction easement, which then allows it to eventually be a through street. So, and that gives more options for that parcel.
So if we turn it into a cul-de-sac, not temporary, where it can't ever go across, we're gonna end up like over at, with Nugget Lane over there, where you're driving 3 miles before you actually have another way out of the neighborhood. If we cut ourselves off here.
Well, if we put the permanent one in there, if somebody comes in the next day and says they want to develop that 18 acre lot, all they gotta do is rip out a little bit of curb and asphalt and then make it look like it was never even there.
But why would we go in and put curb and gutter in?
Because we don't expect anybody to ever develop that 17 acre lot.
And guys, curb and gutter is really not.
Got two different roads.
Yes, curb and gutter, pretty cheap.
Yeah, curb and gutter is really not that much money.
Yeah.
But
I think we need to treat it like a permanent cul-de-sac. Need to do what we said, get the plat amended, get it fixed, do it like it's never gonna change. We might be wrong and it might come in and somebody wants to develop it the next day, but we just need to do what's right.
So my question, I guess, then, what we've heard from Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee has said, hey, if we're willing to do this, he would, grant that or donate. That was his words. But have we talked to the other landowner about his stuff?
You did?
I know you have, but I'm asking if town staff has.
Former town staff has.
Okay.
That, I will say that once Administrator Warner came in, I don't believe there's been any discussion, because I don't think that there was a clear path to talk to him about.
Do you feel like, oh, okay.
So, I guess, kind of, and I don't want to speak for all town staff, but if the board could give us a direction that they wanted us to go in, it would help with negotiations, because there are two clear paths. And so this is not just about Mr. Lee's property, this is about, are we landlocking another development? And that is not something that I would ever advise town staff to make the decision on. I would say that that is a decision that this board needs to make.
So say we, had no issue with the subdivision, we said it's good to be accepted. Do we accept that here tonight, or is that a recommendation on to mayor and board of aldermen?
Well,
You need to go and do it, and then.
So it does go on to mayor and board of, and I think truthfully, whatever we think here, if we say, we come to an agreement and say it either needs to be treated permanent or temporary, that's gonna possibly cost the town money, I guess really either one way or another, so I don't think that we as the board can really approve, that has to come from the board, mayor and aldermen.
But it,
as a
Direction.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, as a point of clarification, just to address Commissioner Moore, is that this was on for discussion to try to get some direction from the commission.
Right.
And then once we had that direction, based on whatever that direction would be, then we would take the next step. If the next step is this commission wants to consider taking the subdivision as is, we'll draft a resolution. It'll be at the next planning commission meeting for you to consider to make a recommendation to the board.
That is correct. It
If
is
you wanna go
listed,
that-
it's just a
It's
discussion.
just discussion, we just
Okay.
need to know, it's been an issue that's been kicked around for far too long, and some of us who are here now didn't create it, so we're just trying to
But
fix
we're
it.
gonna fix it.
Yeah, we're just trying to get it fixed.
So what is the direction of the board? I think we've heard from, private owners, we've heard from the developers, we've heard from the town.
I think mayor.
So, Mr. Mayor, do you want
What'd
to
you
go
say?
order?
I just said,
Good.
in this thing, we need to go ahead and get the developer in or out, whichever way y'all wanna do it, where we can go on and get the thing paved either way. We're responsible paying it after we pay it in. We said that way
Right.
back. So I think they want to get out from under it. If they like to do more of this, kept some, whatever else you got to do. But, we'll go from there.
Okay.
I mean, we just give them a direction and town staff will take off.
Yes, sir.
Go down.
All right, let's get back in order. All right, what's the direction of the board? How do you want to guide town staff on how we want to handle this moving forward?
Second Commissioner Moore, I would like to see it as a permanent code with curb and gutter.
I agree. And ensure the drainage is done right,
And the drainage?
We're gonna go.
Anyone else?
Is anyone gonna talk to the other homeowner before you just take the
No, I think we have to call both.
No, they're both-
We're gonna have to-
we're not making-
Yeah,
When I make a recommendation,
I know you're not making a motion, but,
Well,
two of you's already wanted to take someone else. I know
No, listen.
Mr. Lee is off his property up.
I want to. That's what I'm saying. So we're gonna give the direction to town staff. We're not making a motion on anything tonight. The town staff, that's my understanding, so Ms. Colbert, Mr. Warner, correct me if I'm wrong, so that we give them the direction tonight. They're gonna approach that homeowner, the other homeowner, Mr. Lee, have some formal discussions and decide on how we wanna do it.
What do we do if that other homeowner says, well, it's gonna connect eventually, I don't wanna go to that?
We'll talk next month about
What he said. Mr. Lee has something.
Can I help you with that?
Yes.
I can tell you right now that he wants it to remain a cove also, so I can guarantee you he's gonna say, yes, please.
Okay. So, that's what we'll, yes, sir, Mr.
Yes.
Warren, floor is yours.
Were you done, Mr. Lee?
Yes.
So there's two things I've heard that it seems to be maybe a desire, and clarify, that the cul-de-sac would remain permanent. If that is in fact the case, then the final recorded plat would need to be amended.
Yes.
If it is to remain temporary, and the commission would desire to accept the subdivision as it is with a remaining temporary cul-de-sac, you could amend the agenda to consider that acceptance. Just putting that out there, that you have that latitude. But know that if you want it to be permanent, there's plats that need to be changed and deeds to property, and so it would delay it a little bit if that was the direction that the commission.
Let me ask this, just, I think this is a big concern of the board, several members, so if we do the temporary, what would it look like to put the curb and gutter on for the temporary?
Can we do
Would
that?
would that be possible to help alleviate the drainage issue so we don't have water just sitting there?
Yes, that's
Ian
possible.
can tell you that.
So we could even, on a temporary cul-de-sac, we could still curb and gutter it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we can even, when we amend the plat, we can call it a
With the-
temporary
with the
access
agreement.
easement.
With the agreement of the property.
Of the property,
Yeah.
correct.
Yes, and that would have to
So
be
we
something.
can, I mean, we can call it a temporary one, but it looks permanent at the end of the day, just, that way, Mr. Lee's just giving an easement on his property, not actually, giving away, because it might cause setback issues, it might be anything, and then if it's ever a future, the road is ever extended in the future, then they can take that portion out, and then it becomes his property again.
Yeah. If you
But that's
go
something to be
permanent,
discussed, how it wants to shake out.
Right.
if you go permanent, the only difference is that you transfer the property versus an easement.
Yeah.
Again,
So let me-
both property owners have to agree to all that.
So let me ask this, is the board in agreement that Apex has kind of met their responsibilities?
Yes, at least that's my opinion.
Okay. So, so I guess then is the guide of the board, then to look at doing a temporary cul-de-sac with curb and gutter on it, at the request of the homeowners from both sides.
Well, I think I heard that somebody could make a motion on temporary tonight. Once again, recommendation to the board, Mayor Moore.
If the commission is willing to,
No, I think temporary, keeping it as is without amending the plat, which I don't think we can do that.
I would just be honest, I feel
You
more
wouldn't-
comfortable if we allowed staff to kind of talk to those homeowners,
They have.
Because here's the issue too, is
For years.
they're fixing to shut down paving anyway, so even if you do, I mean, they're not gonna go out there and do it. So no matter what, it's not like it's gonna get paved tomorrow.
True.
So,
We've talked about this for 2 years.
we've talked about it, but
Yes.
that's just my thought, what's another month or so?
If
we'll
the-
have
if we
staff to talk
do
to those
the
homeowners and sure.
Temporary with curb and gutter, does this ditch need to be back?
That's where that drains, either a ditch or an inlet or something, just to make sure that
Yeah,
it
because there
drains
was an
properly.
inlet there, and now the inlet's, I guess, covered under the dirt, I guess.
I mean, it could just
Is
be
that
like a
where-
little curb
It's under the
opening
dirt
with a
now?
ditch coming out the back of it.
There's
something.
never an inlet there, it was just a ditch.
The blue, I don't know what to do with the picture.
I think that blue, that looked like a water valve.
That was a water valve,
Yeah.
Is that what that was, the water
Yeah.
line?
yeah.
So, again, it's at the direction of the board, where do y'all wanna go?
As long as it's curb gutter and the drain's fixed, I don't care if it's temporary or permanent.
Yeah.
Looks right, drains right, property owners get happy, and they get their property back if they ever get developed. And once we buy the property, or the city buys it, he's not getting it back.
I think, to me, we can call it whatever we want to, but I think it should look and feel like a permanent solution. If we call it temporary or permanent, or how we get there.
What being,
So guys, if you do it permanently, what you would do is you would enter into agreements and you would purchase the right of way from the two property owners. If in the future, and I don't know when that future is, let's say it's a month or 6 years, somebody wants to develop across the creek and they want to take the bridge through, what you do is you let them do that, you quit claim the right of way right back to the property owners, and you put the curb and gutter back straight. It's not that big a deal, it's just a property transfer.
Can we legally put curb and gutter on private property?
Not without an easement.
If,
Now you're agreeing.
that's what I was gonna say, if there's a temporary easement, yes.
And that's what they're gonna work out.
So is everybody good with the temporary easement?
Yes.
oh, Mr. Lake.
I'm gonna tell you right now, no.
I understand
It's either
everything.
gonna be permanent or it's not. I'm not granting temporary anything.
Well, that'll
It's
be-
been temporary long enough.
So, Mr. Lee, that'll be discussions,
Well, I'm
town
just
staff
telling
and
you.
stuff to talk to you. You're not a voting member of the board, yes, sir.
I
So they'll-
understand, I'm just telling you,
Yes,
my
sir.
answer to her when she comes to me is gonna be no, so I'm gonna nip it in the bud right now.
I understand. So,
So if we don't do anything, we can pave to just before the cul-de-sac until the
Yes,
other developers,
yes,
Takes it through.
yes.
so is that, your thought is that
that's gonna be,
cul-de-sac
he
would just
does,
sit as is?
the cul-de-sac can sit as is until the other property is completed, because it's no temporary anything.
So if we pave that far, does that still help him on his drainage and standing water?
Well, you wouldn't pave anything in the cul-de-sac at all, you would stop just before the cul-de-sac.
You just dump it in the storm.
Nothing fixed on it.
At that storm inlet.
A couple of, something to.
Which if that ditch was put back in, it probably would help
You
some
see,
things too.
as you go down East Cherry Bark where the curve ends, It doesn't
Yeah,
really
you
show
can
up
see
too
it.
good,
Yeah, mhm, right.
but there is a inlet grate on, right at the end of the curb on both sides of the road. So what may help the drainage issue just by default is when the final layer of asphalt goes on,
Brings it
to
up.
raise the grade up so that those storm
A
grates will
good
start
portion of that
catching.
water is gonna go in those storm drains.
Should, if the road's profile correctly, that's true, yes.
Until my next door neighbor washes his vehicles and up at the top of his driveway, if you do this thing. Right here, that water drains down in the yard, down this drain, and then sits there.
But what about the water running down the road?
Water down the road should be caught by that grate right there, if the road is paved correctly.
Right.
From this forward, or that west,
That's,
from here east, no.
that's when your neighbor, what?
He washes both his vehicles at the same time. As soon as he washes them, it drains from his driveway, down the side of his yard, into my yard, down onto the road, and then sits at the end of the driveway.
Mr. Lee, I just want to be clear, if the town wants to put in a temporary, or wants to grant, would like you to grant access for a temporary easement for proper curb, gutter, drainage, and asphalts in your cove, but it remains a temporary easement, you are not okay with that?
I don't believe I will be.
Okay.
It's my will, I say we go to the, make a motion to send it to the board with, and we would pave to the, basically to the onion, might as well, the cul-de-sac there, and that would stay
To the
temporary.
drain. That takes care of the whole
To the drain
subdivision.
inlets, yeah, until whoever builds across the ditch to finish it out.
You want to make that as a motion?
I'll make that motion.
So you're,
So that would be no curb and gutter, then that would be.
We would stop the paving.
We'd stop paving
at the end of the
Right.
curb, curb,
Right.
and the temporary would remain temporary.
If you look at the page, if you look at your picture of 9 of 18, it'll show you the end of that inlet.
all right, hold on. Mr. Moore,
I believe you had a motion, but before you got a second,
correct.
I wanted to just say that if you're gonna make a motion, other than, because this is discussion, you would need to amend the agenda, then the motion.
That's correct. That is correct.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. To where I can make a motion on
To make a recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for acceptance.
for acceptance to the board
Of Oak Creek too.
of Oak Creek 2.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to amend the agenda so that we can make a recommendation to the mayor and board of aldermen for Oak Creek
Two.
2 acceptance.
Accepting it as is.
Okay, and that, we got that, that's your motion. Make
Correct.
sure. All right.
Yes.
And they-
We have that motion by Mayor,
Picture.
we got that motion by Mayor Philmeyer, we have a second by.
Mayor.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm glad it's not. All right, by Commissioner Philmeyer, we got a second by Commissioner Harbert. Are there any other discussions on the matter? This is just to amend the agenda. Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The agenda has been amended.
Now you have to make your second.
Make a motion, to send a recommendation to the board to accept Oak Creek 2 with the temporary cul-de-sac still in place.
Okay? So we
Just
have.
say still in play.
Still in place.
All right, hold on. We have a motion on the board to send a positive recommendation to the mayor and board of aldermen to accept Oak Creek 2 with temporary cul-de-sac in place.
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Smith. Is there any other discussion on the matter?
I've got a question for,
Yes, sir.
Fire Chief. If the bulbs of that cul-de-sac are blocked and obstructed, how will you access it with your fire truck?
That's a good question. I mean, we'll do whatever we have to do to try to get down there. Like I said, looking at the fire code, looking at this 150-foot dead end that we're looking at on fire code, anything 151 foot, you're looking at a cul-de-sac that's supposed to be at least 50-foot radius.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the matter? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Motion carried. Next up on the agenda, I don't see we have any new business. We can move forward to miscellaneous items from the planning commission. I will show that we accepted earlier in the meeting, we talked a little bit about air serve and a letter was sent to them. Mr. Wallace, can you kind of describe like when you sent the letter, when you got receipt back from the letter?
I got the letter back Friday, and the time that it went through the post office, I'm not real sure, but he's had it for almost 7 days, signed for. The green card came back from the post office, signed and dated, that he received it.
My question, did he sign it or did one of his staff members sign it?
His secretary, and it went to air serve, not to,
Not to the owner of Bear Cliff.
right.
Okay, all right, any other
Rex
questions?
has already done, Rex has already talked to us, so where do we go from here, Rex?
Whatever y'all would like me
Well,
to
what
do.
is the next issue? I mean, just nothing.
Casey, are you familiar with
Yeah.
the air serve issue that we've been discussing here? It's been on the planning commission level, so.
No.
But basically, the approved site plan showed a fence. I don't think it got much more detailed than that, but the approved site plan does show a fence. He does not have a fence surrounding his rear area. You know, our assumption is that it was intended to be some sort of, wooden privacy fence or something similar to that to block sight of it, plus also trash from their, back lot is blowing all over the neighborhood. So we've asked to get the owner of Air Serv to come in here, just ask him just if he would, his approved site plan shows a fence. We'd like to get that fence in because it's an eyesore, and plus there's trash being blown all over the place, and the fence would help resolve. So Rex sent a certified letter to them. It was accepted, received, asking them to come tonight, and we do not see them in the audience. So next step is we'd like to formally ask them, or at least for me, is formally ask them to install the fence as shown on their approved site plan. It would be my assumption, but Mr. Gravel thinks.
And Rex, what about the railroad car?
Well, as they're sitting now, he can't have them. If he wants to pull a permit, yes, we have them in other commercial areas that have them.
But he didn't pull a permit for that?
I mean,
So, for the.
Casey, can you send him a letter?
Well,
It's just going to ask.
Hold on,
I
this
do-
letter
I
called
do-
for.
Yeah.
I do love letters. Has he requested the certificate of occupancy?
he has it.
It has a CO.
Well, we're doing it on the back end, that's where we got a problem.
Yeah.
We should have done it on, everything right up front.
So
And that's
there's,
what we learned.
I will have to look further into this.
There was a lot of swapping.
And he told Shelley, that he would be doing that, when Shelley brought it to us and said that he told her that he would be willing to do blah, 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 blah.
Is there any documentation that whereas the certificate of occupancy was issued
Like as a contingency.
contingent upon this I mean, is there any,
No, but he does not have the CO in his hand. I still have it.
but it was issued?
Not really. He hasn't picked it up.
It's like, look, I'm gonna tell you this, it's kinda like when people come to me and say, I'm kinda pregnant. You're not kinda pregnant, either you are pregnant or you're not pregnant. Was the CO issued, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Culver, would you like some time to kinda dig
I'm
into
gonna
that?
need some time to dig into this.
Would you put it on there for next?
Okay, he does have a cargo container, which the town requires a permit for, which he does not have a permit for. Is there anything that can be done about that?
I mean, I don't, yeah,
I
because
believe
that's a code enforcement violation
Yeah, you can
right
just
there, so yeah.
find him. Request to be moved.
You got one for yours? Just ask.
I don't have one.
I don't have one.
Better get you one.
So obviously,
The town doesn't have one either, though, I'm sure.
obviously, best practices is gonna be from here on to make sure before these certificate, the COs.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Having said that, let me take a look to see if there's anything that we can do.
I just hate to blatantly,
Well, and
ignored us.
you know, and like I said, I mean, it could be issues where he's done it, and then, you know, staffing and labor
I
and
know
lumber
he's
prices
already
and.
yours, but still.
No, I mean, no, I'm still holding him accountable, just like, you know, I hold him more accountable, to be honest with you. But, you know, I mean, I know that was an issue with mine. I know when I had my fence installed, it took me like almost 2 months because lumber shortages and things like that. So we just don't know. So I think maybe we can look this at putting it on the agenda maybe, for next month
Please.
or January.
Mark?
Sir?
Place it on the agenda for the next,
Of course.
meeting. Okay. All right, is there any other miscellaneous items for the planning commission? Seeing none, citizen concerns. I'll move too quick, Steve.
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Shipley. Any other discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Manny, you got my note, I didn't vote yes.